Welcome to the trap. Welcome to the trap.
Welcome to the trap. Welcome to the trap. Welcome to the trap. Welcome to the trap.
Let's go. Zen.
Trap.
Zen.
Trap.
Zen.
Trap.
Zen.
Trap.
Protect.
Yo, peace.
Protect your energy.
Welcome back to the Zen Trap. I'm one of your two hosts, Yogi LG.
Zen P.
The mission at the Zen Trap is to inspire and empower people to continuously seek internal peace to maximize their personal potential. We got a Zen Trap Perspective today, ZTP on a video. People, why don't you let them know what we got today?
All right, so we got a random video on YouTube. Like we said,
Random.
The topic of the month is boundaries. Great topic. The video we found is by Julia Christina Counseling. She is a registered clinical therapist and coach, and she goes through talking all about boundaries. She even has courses. It was a great video, but Yogi LG, tell me what you thought of the video. How would you explain this to someone? Overall explanation on what the video is about.
The video is like for beginners, I would say. If you're not familiar with what boundaries are, she explains that, and then she kind of goes through, I think it's 3 steps of like actually implementing boundaries and how you go about doing that, some ways you can do that, and like the keys to keeping those boundaries up. That's how I would explain it generally.
Yeah,
what
same.
about you?
I don't think I could add something to that. It gives you a great overview on establishing boundaries, where you need to start to where you kind of can finish. Super kind of high level, quick. 28 minutes is really quick for her to go through it. Like she said, she has other resources that you could use, but I think it's a great introduction on just overview on how to establish boundaries. Not really in depth on maybe like why you need boundaries or giving good explanation like that, but just a general overall process on how to establish boundaries. So did you learn something new?
I don't think I learned anything new that I didn't know. I think she pointed out some facts that I was like, oh yeah, that's probably true, that I thought maybe have just been applicable to me. For example, like she pointed out the fact that most people struggle with keeping their boundaries, like not relaxing them at certain points. That's one of the biggest struggles that everybody struggles with. And I was like, that makes sense. So maybe I could say I learned that as a general. I'm sure she has a large sample size. So what about you? Did you find anything unique that stood out, or that you learned something new about?
I think her terminology, it's always nice to hear people's terminology around boundaries. So, I think I learned some new stuff. I haven't done a lot of research into boundaries in general. I know about boundaries. I know what boundaries are. I kind of know just from living life how people set boundaries and stuff, but I've never taken a course, never done research. So hearing her talk specifically about research and just different ways to do it, it reinforces kind of what I've seen in the world and gives me something to I guess, reference. So it was good to me. I learned, I guess, some definitely new terminology and different ways to describe boundaries.
Right. So what do you feel like was your favorite bar or section, or maybe example that she gave? What resonated for you?
What resonated for me is probably 2 things. One, I think I would say the people who struggle the most with setting boundaries are maybe introverted or passive people. And maybe the reasoning for that could be that you don't believe you're worthy of having boundaries or worthy of having rules, or you think it'll offend people, or whatever you want to fill in for that. So her kind of explaining that you kind of need to start there with believing you're worthy, and the first step was really important to me. But she says like all the steps are important, and then talking about the reinforcement area. So again, the video is kind of short to me, 28 minutes. I like the majority of it, but that big part of believing you're worthy to have kind of rules of engagement, as somebody told me, or she uses the example of rules kind of to play in your yard. So I really like that. What about you?
Yeah, so I was going to comment on that analogy of comparing your boundaries to like allowing someone to come play in your yard. I think that was a very good section in general. Just talking about, hey, like if you want to come over here, that's cool, but here are the rules that you got to follow when you in my yard.
House rules, man. It's just
House
like
rules.
spades, Uno,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, house rules apply.
For sure. And then to add on to the part where she was talking about how you can like
Do you have the yard analogy?
Huh?
The yard analogy, do you have it?
Yeah. I mean, like exactly what she said, or I don't have it exactly what she said, but I can tell you in general, she was saying basically like, all right, just imagine your boundaries as your yard. There's no fence or anything around. Like people can freely come into your yard, but if they want to come in and let's say they want to use the water hose and they want to leave it unwound and just throw it back over there, like, oh no, I'm sorry. When you come over here and use my water hose in my yard, you got to roll it back up and put it back where you found it. Or if your dog want to take a poop, cool, your dog can take a poop, but you got to pick up the poop and throw it somewhere else. Like these are the rules, and like it's okay, you can do whatever you want. Like you can use the water hose. However, if you're going to continue to use my water hose, you got to do this. And if you can't do that, then you won't be allowed in my space, right? So I got to do what I got to do to protect me. So I thought that was really good. And then about like believing that you're worthy to set these boundaries, or even knowing why you have them and why you enjoy having them. I thought that was really good, just because sometimes we like, oh, that's a boundary for me, but is it still a boundary for you? Is that something that you still enjoy? Do you know why you have it? Is it a trauma response? Because some people set boundaries just trying to build walls around themselves. And so really knowing why you have them and why you enjoy having them is important. I thought that was my favorite.
I agree. Like how are these boundaries serving you, and are they continuing to serve you? I think we talked about that last time, setting boundaries from trauma responses versus setting, I guess, healthy boundaries that still allow you to operate in the world how you want to be seen. So that was a big section for me, just the defining of your boundaries, taking the time to really define why you set your boundaries, because it sets you up in the future of when you're trying to have those conversations and reinforce them. You already know your reasons why, and you're prepared to respond to anybody if you choose to respond to them about why you want to set that boundary, why it's important to you, and how you can, I guess, again, I like rules of engagement now, that's stuck in my head, how you kind of can engage and operate with me. And like you said, the other biggest part to me is just like that reinforcement section, figuring out a way that works best for you for reinforcing. Because I think I've talked about this in past videos. Depending on who you set the boundary with, a coworker, your family, somebody super close to you, or a close friend, or an acquaintance, or depending on who you're setting it with, can determine which technique you kind of want to use to establishing it. But that takes, again, deep work in you to figure out what is your best way for with that individual on reinforcing and establishing that boundary. Is it non-verbals? She talked about, I think, the limp handshake method.
Yeah, I got that written down. No, you cool.
Well, just again, limp handshake method, which is almost very, a passive way, avoiding, if it's a conversation and they're leading it to a place that you don't want to talk about, you can kind of either steer it back another way or just not give too much information. I don't have much information on that. That's not something I really can talk about. I whether you know about it or not, you're just avoiding that because that's kind of your boundary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the limp handshake was definitely something I could, I guess, relate to, just because that's a super passive way of doing stuff, and it tends to not offend people when you just don't engage, instead of being like super direct on, hey, I'm not engaging. I want you to notice that I'm not engaging. I'm doing this on purpose because it's a boundary. Like sometimes saying that in certain settings can be a little abrasive, or you may feel some type of way about doing it. So a very passive aggressive way is to not engage. And maybe it's not passive aggressive. Maybe it's just passive.
Yeah. So what's something you would share with your loved ones from this?
Just how important setting boundaries are. Like I think for my loved ones or people that I'm close to, being raised in like the Black community, we feel like family is one of those things where you can't like set boundaries. And if I was to share something with my loved ones, it's you can set boundaries with anybody in any given place. It's about what makes you feel comfortable and how you can operate safely in your world without, you know what I'm saying, disturbing your own peace and messing up your own energy. So I would probably share with them like it's important to set them with everybody. Nobody's excluded, including family.
Yeah, family doesn't just mean you get free access to
for sure. My yard.
Whatever you have going on, your yard, your rules of engagement.
What about you? Did you something you would share with your people?
I would share probably similar thing, that you all can set boundaries, and just the importance of defining, just what we talked about right there. Just make sure not make sure, but it helps when you're able to communicate your boundaries, when you're able to define them. So it helps versus even if you are passive, just going the route of not explaining your boundaries and just going ahead straight to enforcing them. That can, again, lead to confusion and all those other things that we could talk about from that reinforcement section. Because I thought she did a great kind of short, concise, deep dive into why it's so important to reinforce your boundaries.
Yeah. And even how you reinforce them.
Yeah, real good section on that I really enjoyed with that mouse example.
Yeah. You want to explain that mouse example? Or?
Would love to explain that mouse example.
All right, go ahead.
So when enforcing your boundaries, this is just like a child, having a child. If you have a child and you are setting rules in your house for how those rules should be, you can almost talk about like the pushover parent. Hey, I'm telling you these are the rules of this house. That child is learning. That child is most of the time gonna test you. Let me see how far I can bend on these rules. You say the rule is this. The rule is I can't go out after 9 or whatever, or something like that, or I can't come in this house after 9 or something. Whatever the rule is. I'm trying to make something up. Whatever the rule is, if that child comes in at 9:05, there's no consequences. Now they start coming in at 9:15, 9:30, 10, or whatever. You have a light conversation with them, and they like, oh, if the worst is gonna happen is like this light conversation, or sometimes it's not even gonna be a conversation. You are setting the stage that you don't respect the boundaries or rules that you're setting in your house. So why would anybody else? That's like the easiest way to say it. If you're not enforcing them and treating them as important, the people engaging with you won't, and ultimately it'll lead to confusion. So I say all that to say, to get to the mouse example, they say it like, if you have a mouse and you're giving them a training where if they push this button or pull this lever or whatever they're doing, a treat comes out. If they have that consistently happening and then suddenly, just like boundaries, it stops. They press the button, no treat comes out. They're going to keep pressing the button because naturally people, animals too, or well, I guess not animals, but people don't like to be kind of told what to do and kind of will resist something new and change eventually. So you're not getting that result that you expected. So they keep pressing the lever and no treat comes out. So eventually they'll just stop pressing the lever because they recognize now this lever either doesn't work anymore or it's not going to produce the results that I think it will. No more treat is going to come out. But what she talked about, and let me give you the actual word, is intermittent reinforcement, which I thought was going to be a good thing. I just like how the word sounds, but it's actually a bad thing,
right?
Like a negative in setting your boundaries. So if that mouse is pressing the button and no treat comes out, and then all of a sudden a treat comes out, maybe like 2 treat comes out 2 days in a row, then the next day, 5 days, no treat comes out. Now they're thinking, oh, okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. So that will lengthen the time that they're going to keep pressing that button or lever, whatever you want to call it. So if you compare that to humans, if somebody keeps testing you on your boundaries, you say, I don't want to go out late, or I don't want you to stop by my house unannounced, and they stop by the house unannounced, you still inviting them in, you still acting like it's all cool, but sometimes you're not, they're going to keep up that habit. Like it's going to elongate it versus you could have just stopped it in the beginning. And I guess with mostly passive people who I would say have this struggle, you're trying to avoid conflict by reinforcing your boundary, but you also got to recognize that in avoiding that conflict, that initial small conflict, you're allowing it to grow. Like you're giving it potential energy because maybe you're getting upset and the other person doesn't even recognize that you're getting upset. They are walking all over your boundaries. You're getting upset on the inside, and then you just unleash on them one day, or you just cold turkey just start doing something different. Now you're just living in a world of chaos and confusion, all because you couldn't reinforce your boundary at that small part where you had already listed it and said it, and you didn't reinforce those rules. So I like that section was really good to me. It's just like behavioral psychology.
Yeah, I feel you. Is there something that you feel like, damn, I cannot see that. Oh, all right. Is there something in here that you feel like you can grow from that will change you and kind of shift you in some way, like you may implement into your life currently?
I think this helps me when talking to other people about boundaries, helping give them a reference on why they're important and establishing them. Definitely the 2 parts for me is just telling people, do a good job of, again, self-auditing yourself so that you can define your boundaries and why they're important, and doing that quality check to figure out if these boundaries still serve you. and that reinforcement piece, trying to figure out what's your best way to follow up. How do you say no? What is a comfortable way for you to say no to people? And again, you can have multiple ways that you use for those multiple different situations. So I think this just gives me information that I could share with other people, because I think me, myself, I don't necessarily struggle too much with setting boundaries per se, because again, I don't come across a lot of, I guess, opportunities for me to even really use it. Because I guess my preparation stage of me kind of knowing what I like and don't like a lot of times leads me to not having to really reach that conflict of setting those boundaries.
I got a question.
Yeah, sure.
When do you feel like you set your first like hardcore boundary? Like, how old were you? What was the boundary? What was the situation? And it like made you realize like, oh, I need to set a boundary with this.
My first boundary.
I know that's a difficult one.
That's
so
very difficult. I don't.
So you can chew on that for a minute.
Do you know yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
My first boundary was the B word.
Okay.
Somewhere in like, I don't know, high school, I just didn't. I could, every time somebody called me the B word or like said it casually, it just rubbed me the wrong way. I felt something inside of me like this. I don't want you to call me that. I don't really like to. I'm not gonna call you that. Like, you don't gotta worry about it, but just don't call me that. And so that was my first time implementing a boundary, and it was one that like really caught on because a lot of my friends, like, I would draw a hard stop every time. Hey, chill with the B word. Like, please don't call me the B word. I don't like it. You can call your other friends that. I don't mind hearing it around me. I just don't want to direct it at me, and I'm not gonna call you that. You know, it's just my preference. I was like 15, 16, 17. Like, I kept having to do it, but that was probably my most consistent boundary and probably the first one I set in place.
I don't know my first boundary, I guess, internally to me. I don't know if I've really had to sit somebody down and explain to them, and the reason why I think she even talks about it, boundaries are very your choice thing. Even if we go back to that hose example, somebody might not care about how you treat their hose. Somebody might truly internally, I don't care if you stop by my house. I actually really enjoy it when you come by unannounced. I love a good surprise like that or something. That might be somebody's real reality. My reality is a lot of stuff doesn't really bother me, and the stuff that does, I just kind of can remove myself, because I think the people close in my life know what bothers me or know how I operate or know how I move kind of, and they just kind of accept me for how I am. So I've never really had to do, I think I've had to do maybe, I'll say, matter of fact, I'll just give you an example. This ain't necessarily my first one, but it's a good example that was a tough one for me. My mom would like still feel like she can take her thumb and like, you know, do that thing where you wipe the corner of your mouth or just lay hands on you at any given moment. And this is when I'm like 28 or 30, one of the two, something like that. And I just remember being in the car and just saying like, Ma, you can't just like put your hands on me whenever you want. Like, you can't just like, and she looked at me like I was so crazy. Like, boy,
Yeah.
What?
I birthed you.
You are my property. Like, I can do whatever I want to you. So I just, kind of let her have her moment, and then like let her think about it. And she was like, yeah, Paris, you're right. You are right. I was like, look, I'm not saying you can't touch me, or just when you just do it unexpectedly, like it's not even that, like it's not a hug or something. When you just laying hands on me, no, you can't do that. Like, don't do that, please. And it never was a conversation after that. But now, will she still do it? I'm not even sure, because again, it's not that it necessarily bothers me, but I know that it could start to bother me. So I try to like nip it early, and I try and do it in a kind of light as way as possible. But early on, first boundaries, I just am not a very, not that I don't respond well, because I probably do respond well. I don't tolerate a lot of disrespect, whatever I define as disrespect from people. So yes, you can talk to me any kind of way, but I'm not going to sit there and listen or allow you to talk to me any kind of way. You cannot just put hands on me, like physically put hands on me. I ain't been in a lot of fights. I ain't really been in too many like serious scuffles or altercations, but yeah, like I have hard lines like that I don't necessarily feel like I need to reinforce.
Yeah, I got you. I understood.
All right, what about you? Did you find something in the book that I could grow from? Not the book, the video, but.
All right, what's the question?
Did you find something in this video that I could grow from?
Oh, I thought it was me. Okay, all right, cool.
Me.
I feel like, and I have this written down. I would even say like the implementation of the boundaries. I think sometimes you're so lighthearted most of the time that like people don't know like, oh, is this a serious boundary, or like is this kind of like Paris just saying like that? Hey, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I think nope.
No.
Okay. So I feel like sometimes like I think people respect you because a lot of your boundaries are, I would say, common boundaries. Like even saying like, you're not gonna talk to me disrespectful, you're not gonna put your hands on me. Most people have those type of boundaries. Yeah. So when you do say something to somebody about maybe something that they do that I may know, like I may watch and be like, oh yeah, Paris really don't like that. Like you don't like being touched, right? Sometimes it'll like you'll casually say it like, hey, don't touch me, like, and so they may like kind of take it light. Like I think we had a dude, we were out traveling with some friends, and a friend of a friend was like touching him unnecessarily. So the first time I think because he said it lighthearted, like he took it jokingly, right? So I just think sometimes people can take what you say jokingly, but I think
I do that on purpose. I want it to be taken like light at first.
Okay, yeah.
Just to see if you're gonna respect it, and if you don't, now I gotta have it direct.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah,
I don't want to go 0 to 100. I like to like gradually
get up there.
Yeah, I like to gradually increase.
Yeah, but if that was something that I think you do a good job at the boundaries that you do have. I think you are very comfortable having tough conversations and leaning into tough conversations. So I know you will have them. So I wouldn't say
that's the biggest part is like being able to have tough conversations, because it's not to say that I'm not uncomfortable in those tough conversations either. I'm uncomfortable, but it's not something that's foreign to me. I know the feeling. I'm comfortable with the uncomfortable feeling. And I know, like just what I said earlier, that if we don't have this short amount of uncomfortable conversation, then it's going to lead to all these other potential bigger uncomfortable conversations. So I'm trying to avoid those by having these moments of uncomfortableness.
Yeah. All right. So what is something you saw in a video you think I could grow from, or I can learn from, add to my repertoire? Probably
the reinforcement and establishing them. I think just honestly, I was about to say it's kind of like it's a good amount to me.
Go ahead. That's fine.
I think the implementation, I think maybe you do a good job in your head of thinking of like, these are boundaries for me. This is the reason why, and this is how I want to uphold them. But I don't know if you do a good job communicating with the people to let them know that that's what you're going to be doing. And even if you do have that conversation, I don't think you just reinforce it in the moment. You kind of still let it slide. Like you that parent, like, hey, no dogs on the couch. The dog get on the couch like the fourth time. You like, okay, tonight you can sleep on the couch. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is a good night too. You can sleep on the couch. So it's like, oh, okay. And then like one day you just gonna get upset, or you're not even gonna get upset. You gonna ignore it. Like you gonna go straight to, all right, I'm gonna remove myself. And the other person is confused because they're like, I've done it before. Like, so it leaves room for confusion. So I think just the two things of clearly stating it to them, and then letting them know what's going to happen if they don't. I think you don't let them know what's going to happen if they don't. You leave that very open on purpose.
On purpose.
So it leaves them confused. Like it leaves them confused, and then you act like you wonder why they're confused.
Yeah, I don't typically explain the if you do this, then I'll do that. If you do this, I might be like, I don't like that.
Because then they may do some form of it that they may think is different. You like, nah, that's the same thing to me. And you just like, done. So it's not really giving them a fair shake on even respecting your boundaries. So it's just
communicating those.
Communicating all of those things. I feel it.
All right, touche. Any last words on the video or anything you want to leave with people about boundaries? I know we got some good stuff coming up this month. So we got a lot more conversations around this, which I'm excited to have.
I'm just excited about, again, the book review that we're going to do. I'm really excited about reading the book by Nedra and just learning. Again, I haven't done a lot of research on boundaries, so I'm excited to learn more about boundaries and the different dynamics in different areas, because boundaries just don't apply to like strangers or just your family and friends. They're boundaries in your relationships. They're boundaries in work relationships. So it's just so many different areas that you could apply boundaries to. So I'm just excited about what we got with that book.
You know what I think is challenging? It's probably a last word for me. Cool. I imagine it's hard setting boundaries with your kids. Like, you know how like, in a sense of like, You say that, but my thing is like, you know how sometimes like I'll even look at. We went to a birthday party yesterday.
Different. That's all.
Yeah, probably. We went to a birthday party yesterday, and like somebody was like, "Oh, he can have a sucker. It's his birthday," and I was like, "Well, it's 9:30, so my boundary will be no candy after 9:30." And that like, but in those moments, it's like, it is your birthday. Let me let this slide one time. Then you kind of doing that.
I'm cool with that exception.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, it's kind of the same concept that she was talking about.
That's
you don't think so?
To me.
Okay, all right, cool.
It's again your house rules, right?
Yeah.
My house rules on the regular is no candy after 9:30.
Yeah.
It's your birthday today. This is an exception to the house rule. Hey, and it's not like you just ate candy. I came to you and said, hey, I know you usually can't have candy after 9:30. It's your birthday today, so today you can have candy after 9:30. But after today, there is no more.
Is it just based off that clarification?
It's the clarification.
Okay, I got you.
It's like,
all right.
If you say, hey, you popped up at my house, I'm not gonna let you in my house, but you are distraught. Your friend is emotionally distraught. They just had something crazy happen to them and they really wanted to talk to you. They didn't call first. Hey, I know you distraught. I'm gonna let you in this time. Yeah. You explain to them, this is a very unique situation. Not unique, but this is a special occasion on when you can do this. So it's the explanation, really.
I got you.
You know what I mean? That's what makes it different. Because where I thought you was going to go with that is like just some regular rules. Like you saying like no candy after 9:30, but then it's just like, oh, your friend over here, y'all can have candy after 9:30. And then it's like it leads to this one and this one and this one. Oh, nah.
But I mean, I used to try that same thing. Like I slept in my mom's bed. This is a confession. I slept in my mom's bed till I was probably like 10 at least. So it would be like if she would let me in one night because I was sick as an exception, I'm gonna try the next night and the next night. And so it kind of reminded me of that mouse story, which is why I was like, with parents.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's different than like the birthday thing to me too, because then that's the parents' discretion of, I know my child. Is my child really sick?
Yeah.
Like you gotta have that knowing of your child. Hey, no.
Yeah.
No.
I feel you. All right, well, this has been another ZTP Zen Trap Perspective. I'm one of your two hosts, Yogi LG.
Zen P.
If you can't do nothing else, protect your peace.
And protect your boundary.
Facts. It's the Zen Trap. It's the Zen Trap. We out.